because they had a contest. And I went to a couple of their public appearances, and they said, we're having this contest. We want your ideas. And so they've been bringing people along very purposefully, very generously on their journey, and I think it's to their credit. And I really love that they have opened the world of exploration to more people.
Yeah, and something like this, of course, it needs money, it needs funding, it needs support. And President Trump, during his first term, kind of laid out the groundwork and the blueprints for the Artemis program, setting his sights on the moon and that goal of putting humans back on the surface of the moon by 2028 really is that kind of ambitious goal, similar, you might say, to that Kennedy goal of putting people on the moon in the very beginning back in the 1960s. But it's those kinds of goals, that kind of space race that we're witnessing right now with China that can really propel these sorts of amazing accomplishments, isn't it?
Well, and they are amazing, and at the same time, I look at the purposeful steps that have created what we're seeing today. In that, I came to NASA as a chemist, as a scientist, and my first mission was a mission to do 30 different experiments and pretty much figure out how are we going to design a space station to do science on. Let's practice on the space shuttle. Let's figure that out. And then when I got up to the space station, I felt like I was at home. And on that space station, the things that we find out for science about growing plants in places where it's hard to do that, that's great for growing food on the way to Mars and on Mars or on the moon, but it's also great here on Earth. And things that we find out about our physiology. So I think people sometimes would ask why we haven't gone to Mars, and I would say, well, because we're not ready yet, but we will. We will be.
Yeah, well, we heard from the president kind of laying out that goal, at least in that message, congratulating those 4 astronauts. And of course, the president, not the only one watching on as the astronauts made that really spectacular and successful landing there. Plenty of people gathered across the country to watch that. And one of those is our own Shaima Halil, our Los Angeles correspondent. She's been at an Artemis 2 landing watch party at the Columbia Memorial Space Center. Shaima, I'm presuming that there are still people there watching that moment as those astronauts finally made their way out of the capsule.
Yes, and there were more cheers, and there was more excitement, and there were more eyes on that big screen behind me as people here watched the astronauts then being taken out and being taken on those inflatable boats. I must say, there's been so much emotion, so much collective emotion in this room, and it went from anticipation and anxiety and nerves to happiness and pride and relief. And I think it's the idea that it's a moment that brought so many people together, not just space enthusiasts, not just scientists, but communities and families. So many people coming here with their children, wanting them to witness that moment. One mother told me that this is nearly miraculous, and she wanted her daughters to be able to tell their kids that they were watching this live. And watching it live with us was Pam Lista. Pam, join us here. Thank you so much for being with us. I want you to tell me, as a space educator, as someone who's taught this to her kids, to her students for so many years, what did that feel like for you, that moment?
We still have some work to do to get the crew.
I was like speechless. I was just like, it was so exciting to finally, I was alive during the Apollo program. I was in 10th grade with when Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, and now this is the next generation, the Artemis generation. I'm retired right now, but I have taught about this Artemis mission for 5, 6, 7 years, and finally, for it to happen, and then to see the fulfillment of mission accomplished, seeing them in, they landed. I know. It's just like, we're so grateful for this. I prayed so hard that even that 6 minutes, of a blackout, I was just praying. I was holding onto my friend's arm, but NASA did it so right. Everything went so well, and that took hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people working together. And then we have countries coming together that have contributed to that, what they've making things happen, and all the projects they've done to come together to make this a great success. So think about what our country's going through right now and what countries in the world are going through. Don't you feel that this is the greatest example of how countries can come together in a peaceful way and learn from each other and share information and move us forward into the future? Let's hear it for the space program.
And I know that when we were chatting before we went on air, that you were talking about how many children are here right now, families with their children, and how important this is for the next generation.
Oh, it's definitely important. I do these space talks at my church, and I had families here with my church that came with their kids. They're like kindergartners, young kids. I saw all these other kids sitting here. Maybe they didn't understand everything, but they could get the awe and the wonder. And that's the kind of thing that initial, that can stick with them to move them forward and get them excited and motivated to maybe learn more about space or the STEM world. We need these people. We need these kids. They are our next generation. They need to be motivated.
And inspired.
And so that's what this is all about here. I love it so much. I was so grateful that I had the opportunity to experience this today.
And we're so grateful that you're here telling us about it. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you. You know, the wonderful thing about this is that in a story like this, we can hear from astronauts and scientists and physicists and people that can tell you everything about the technicalities of this. But you also hear from families, from fathers and mothers, from children who are gathered here because of what Pam said, that collective wonder, that curiosity about what these astronauts are able to do. And I think this is one of those stories that if you're